Alright, I am back with another video, and today I am doing another build request. This is a bit of a strange one. I was asked to do a build that was a mix of a bard, a cleric, and a sorcerer. Which, okay, very, very specific, and I kind of asked the person in question who requested this, well, okay, is there a theme here you're going for? And they said, and they mentioned to me the Children of the Starry Quill. Now, apparently this is a D&D lore thing, and from my understanding of it, these guys are bards that are kind of like information gatherers for the Church of Mystra, which is interesting to me. I thought it was a really interesting concept, and I tried to do more research on these guys, but literally what I just said to you is basically all the information I can find on, but even the Forgotten Realms wiki, the Children of the Starry Quill are literally described with one sentence, that being they are bards that gather information and are like kind of info brokers and like infiltrators. Basically, if there is a piece of information that the Church of Mystra wants found to be able to get and like the upper hand on a certain issue, then these are the guys they kind of turn to. It's really, really strange. But I thought even with that kind of limited information, it was an interesting concept for a build, so I decided to get right on it. And I'm going to be trying to stick to this whole three-way multi-class thing, although I personally do think that if I was really making a Child of the Starry Quill build and was going purely based on lore, I would be making a bard, obviously, but I think I would actually splash in maybe wizard instead, kind of making a charisma and intelligence build, and then also getting scroll stuff and yada yada yada. But we're going to be doing the build request today, so let's get into it. So I'm going to be starting as a bard because I feel like that is the first and foremost kind of class we want to go with. And while there is going to obviously be some multi-classing with this build, feel free to play around with any of these levels. Any of the starter classes except for maybe sorcerer would be pretty good here. Cleric especially for the extra armor proficiencies, although we will kind of get the stuff we want on a multi-class. So kind of you can start as either a bard or a cleric, and again throw in the multi-class levels wherever you want them. It really doesn't matter. I'm mainly going to be focusing on getting our bard stuff kind of first, but there is something I want from cleric as well. So let's get into it. So as for our cantrips, the obvious Vicious Mockery and Friends as always. As for spells, you kind of have the option to take whatever you really like here. If we're going with someone who is good at infiltration and like info gathering, I would say Disguise Self and Speak with Animals are definitely some pickups we want, because obviously animals can provide a lot of information, and Disguise Self is just a great way to kind of disguise yourself to be able to infiltrate places. I mean, it's not exactly very hard to imagine. We're also going to grab Dissonant Whispers, because again, this is just kind of the good standard bard damage spell, and I want to pick it up. And I can also see us grabbing, perhaps, Charm Person, although we already have friends, so I'm probably just going to grab Fairy Fire, because again, it is another, you know, powerful utility cantrip that's going to be good for your whole party. And I think I do see this character as more of a utility support character, but is not really going to be at the forefront of combat, and is mainly just going to be in the back lines, helping out their allies as much as they can, and I feel like this is a good set to be able to do that. Starting instrument, make it whatever you like. And here are the stats. Play around with these. In fact, I don't think Wisdom needs to be that high. In fact, if you wanted to kind of go for a 14-14 split on Wisdom and Intelligence here, I feel like that could work. But you're kind of left with an awkward stat spread, so maybe I think I'll just stick with this since we are going to be doing a Cleric multi-class, so it's worth it. You are going to see a Dexterity here. Spoiler alert, we are using the Gloves of Dexterity just because it is quite a multi-ability score dependent build. So I feel like the Gloves of Dexterity being able to patch out that little problem is, you know, pretty good. But you can take some points out of Wisdom if you want and just pump those into Dexterity at the start, or even Intelligence, or whatever you want to do. And you can kind of get away with this for a while and then just, you know, get the Gloves of Dexterity and then respec. It's entirely up to you, but I would say this is kind of what I want the final stats to look like. As for our skill proficiencies, starting as a bard, we're going to get quite a few, and as you can see, I've gone for some weird ones, but I think you'll understand my reasoning. We're going for Perception, Insight, and Religion. I don't really see these guys as bards, like, do the whole conversation thing as much as the information gathering thing, and obviously being a bard, there are a lot of opportunities to gather information, so I feel like just getting a bunch of knowledge skills really works for me, so I quite like, we got Arcana and History from our background, that being the Sage, which works well for this build thematically, because you get inspiration for learning information, so, you know, pretty good. We're also going to grab religion, so we have knowledge on religion, makes sense. Insight, so we can read people, makes sense. And perception, so we can spot things, also makes sense, in my opinion at least. Next up, at Bard level 2, we're going to be grabbing a few interesting things, mainly our Jack of all trades and our Song of Rest, two of our most important Bard features. We're also going to be able to grab an extra spell, and it's really up to you to pick whatever you like. I'd probably go with a utility spell like Featherfall or Long Strider first, and I'm probably going to pick Featherfall because, again, it is an extremely useful spell. Now, at this point, I do want to quickly dip over to Cleric. However, you can keep going with Bard if you like. Like I say, all of the levels here are extremely interchangeable. But let's go into our Cleric levels now, and I think it's really obvious what Cleric domain we're picking. We're picking Knowledge. And what this is essentially going to allow us to do is get a few extra skill proficiencies, wherever we pick those. Abilities, here we are. It's going to give us 2 skill expertise, my apologies, which can be in Arcana, History, Nature, or Religion. I'm personally going to be going with Arcana and History, because I feel like that works out pretty nicely. We're also going to be able to choose our deity, obviously that being Mystra. I mean, if you wanted to consider this the Chosen of Mystra build for this channel, I mean, I guess you could, but I don't really think so. I think my Mystic Theurge does that better, in my opinion, but that's entirely up to you. But anyway, we're going to go with Mystra as our deity, because of course we are, and the knowledge domain, obviously, to get things like command and sleep, and also some other cool stuff we're going to want later. We're also going to be able to grab some cantrips, and I want resistance, guidance, and thaumaturgy, because, you know, it makes sense. Although, if you feel like thaumaturgy is a bit, kind of, you know, naff when you got friends, feel free to swap that out for produce flame. I quite like it as an offensive cantrip that feels a bit more arcane than holy, which I feel like this is what this build more is. But anyway, that was not a proper sentence. As for our abilities, I'm going to absolutely recommend Sanctuary. I think it works really well. And I feel like if you wanted to swap out the Sorcerer levels for Wizard in this build, which is what I tried to do initially, but I thought, you know what, I'll just stick with the request. Sanctuary mixed with Abjuration Wizard. Again, I use this on my Mystic Theurge. It's an extremely powerful combo that I absolutely recommend. But I think we're going to go with Sanctuary, Guiding Bolt, I would say Bless, and Shield of Faith, although I can also see Inflict Wounds if you want. And yeah, I think I've got everything for our first level of Cleric. Now for our second level of Cleric, we're going to be getting the main thing I want Knowledge Cleric for, that being the Knowledge of the Ages, meaning we gain a proficiency in all skills of a chosen ability until a long rest, once per long rest. So if you feel like you're really missing out on those Charisma skills, there you are, you can get them all without having to spend any of your actual proficiencies, and you can also make this a lot more flexible, allowing you to get proficiency in anything. So really, for someone who is a knowledge seeker and an information gatherer, this is probably one of the best and most thematic skills we could possibly get. We also do get an extra spell at this level, and I probably am going to grab Inflict Wounds. And that's going to be it for our Cleric levels. I really don't see a reason to go too far into Cleric here, as a lot of the things I could say that I would want to grab from Cleric we're just going to be getting from the other subclasses anyway, so I feel like just coming here for the level 2, getting Knowledge of the Ages and those utility cantrips is mainly what I want. Also medium armor proficiency and shield proficiency if you want that. But we're going to go into Bard again now, and we're going to be grabbing our subclass, which is obviously going to be the College of Law. I mean, what else would it be? It is the most on-theme thing. It is literally what the entire concept is based around, so it just makes sense to grab. Which means we're going to be able to grab 3 more proficiencies and 2 more expertise. And I'm going to recommend picking up a proficiency in Stealth. Again, this looks like it's a bit weak, but remember we are using the Gloves of Dexterity, so this will be a lot higher. And I feel like let's grab Investigation as well. I feel like that would make a lot of sense here. And I could see us grabbing maybe Nature. I feel like maybe that would be another good knowledge skill, or Sleight of Hand if you want to kind of like steal things as far as information is concerned. But I feel like that's more roguey than I really want to go with this build, so I think I'm just going to stick with what I have here. And I feel like Investigation expertise works, and so does Insight expertise, so you can really get into and get the information you want, either through people or through analyzing clues. So I feel like that works quite well. As for our spells, I want to grab Enhance Ability. Again, this is an extremely useful utility spell that works for you and the whole party, giving advantage on certain ability checks with the chosen ability. Really, really good skill to have. Again, as a utility character, this is seriously going to do you some good. But I could also see things like Detect Thoughts to be able to read people's minds to get information. See Invisibility. You would be surprised how many wizards just leave an invisibility charm on something they don't want to be found. So yeah, absolutely grab this. Knock for getting into places without needing to lockpick. Invisibility to be able to infiltrate better. These all work, but I'm going to go with enhanced ability for now. At Bard level 4, we're going to be picking up our first feat. A bit late, I know, but like I said, play around with the levels, and of course we're going to go for an ability score improvement and bump up that charisma. It just makes the most sense. We're also going to be grabbing another cantrip, and I quite like Mage Hand here. And again, for our spells, I'm probably going to grab See Invisibility, because again, I quite like that utility. Next up at Bard level 5, we're going to be getting our Font of Inspiration, meaning our Bardic Inspiration now comes back on a short or long rest. And also our Bardic Inspiration is going to increase, meaning that both our Cutting Words feature and our regular Bardic Inspiration is going to be much better. We're also going to be grabbing another set of spells, and we can grab level 3 spells at this point, but I think I just want to grab Detect Thoughts again to be able to gather that information. And finally, at Bard level 6, we're going to be getting one of the main features of College of Lore Bard, that being Magical Secrets a bit earlier. And you can really take whatever you like here. I'm not going to say you deliberately need to lock yourself into anything in particular, but I quite like just grabbing Counterspell and Haste. These are two powerful spells, although you can get Haste from an item like the Darkfire Shortbow, so if you're not too into that, feel free to pick up something else. But I feel like these two powerful utility options are going to be super good for this build, especially when we can go Sorcerer and get Twin Cast to be able to twin Haste for our party and make them absolutely unstoppable. We also do get another spell at this level, and I think I am going to grab Knock. Again, a super impressive utility spell, but if you have a rogue on your party, you might think this isn't exactly necessary. But I find if you're newer to the game and not exactly sure like where to find all the Thieves' tools, and maybe you don't have a rogue in your party, like I did, Knock is an extremely powerful utility option. And with our levels as they currently stand, I want to jump over to our Sorcerer levels. Did I mess something up here? No, we still have 4 levels. I don't know what's wrong with me. For some reason I can't count today. It's late and I'm tired. But let's go into Sorcerer now. Again, you could take these Sorcerer levels earlier if you want the utility, but, you know, I'm just grabbing this here and now. And again, I can absolutely see this being swapped out for Wizard levels, using maybe the Warped Headband of Intellect to get those intelligence points. But honestly, I kind of just like Sorcerer here. It is going to give us some utility, and it makes us a little bit less multi-ability score dependent than we would have been. But Wizard would allow you to learn scrolls, so maybe throwing in 1 level of Wizard would be quite nice. But again, you would lose out on a feat, but play around with this sort of concept. Again, really doesn't matter to me. It's your build, do what you like. As for our cantrips, grab whatever you like. It really does not matter. I'm going to say Rare Frost and Shocking Grasp are good options here. And in fact, especially Shocking Grasp, I feel like this is a much more useful option than a lot of people realize, especially when things are up close. It's basically, if you can use it and land it and get the shocked effect, you can basically get out of jail for free because your enemy won't be able to take attacks of opportunity because they can't use reactions. So I feel like this gets a little bit of slack, but I actually think it's better than people think it is. As for our spells, I think it's pretty obvious here. Shield and Magic Missile are just the best utility spells we're going to get out of this. And our our subclass even, now you can go with anything here. I don't think it's really going to matter. If you want Clothing for some reason, you can go with Draconic Resilience to get that unarmored defense. In fact, maybe if you want better concentration saves, you could start with a level of Sorcerer, but I don't know. I wanted to get our Bard stuff a bit earlier. And I'm personally going to be going with Storm Sorcery here for Tempestuous Magic, because I feel like it is quite a useful feature for me being able to maneuver around the map. And for a support utility character that doesn't want to be in the thick of it, I feel like that works out quite well. Next up, a Sorcerer level 2, we're going to be getting our Meta Magic, meaning we can now use sorcery points to augment our spells. And speaking of spells, we are going to get another one. And again, take whatever you like here, it really doesn't matter. I'm personally going to be going with Chromatic Orb, because while it is also a decent damage option, it is a good utility option as well, allowing you to be able to create surfaces that can inflict status conditions onto enemies, which can do a lot for you. As for our class passives, obviously we're taking Twin Spell, and I think whichever other one you like, you could just take. It doesn't really matter. I might go with Careful Spell. I don't know. Or maybe Extended Spell. To make haste longer. But you can't use it at the same time as Twinned. Whatever. At Sorcerer level 3, we're going to be getting even more meta magic, meaning we now get to grab Quicken Spell, because it's the best one, so let's just get it. Although I could see Subtle Spell. I wish you could change, like, your meta magic options, like you could swap them out. I would totally swap Extended Spell for Subtle Spell here. And I feel like Subtle Spell really does kind of get a shaft here, because it's a really, really cool option, and I want it, something that I would personally like to build around. But, I mean, you always want to take Quicken Spell, and again, you can only take one of these, so, I don't know. We're going to go Quicken Spell here, but I might make a Subtle Spell build. I feel like that could be quite fun. Anyways, let's keep going here. We have a few options here, and I'm obviously going to go with Misty Step, one of the best utility options for being able to move around the map and the environment. But there's obviously a bunch of other things you could go for here, like Darkness, Scorching Ray, whatever you really like, but I'm going to go with Misty Step. And finally, at level 12, we're a Sorcerer level 4, giving us some more sorcery points and an extra cantrip. Take whatever you like. And an extra spell. I'm going to grab Scorching Ray, because again, I quite like having that extra damage option. And we get an ability score improvement. We're going to bump that charisma up to 20, so we actually have our spellcasting modifier at its capstone. Because, you know, for some reason, that doesn't happen a lot with my builds, which is weird. Anyways, let's finish this up. And that is the build. Overall, I mean, again, I kind of said that, you know, you can play around with the levels, and I would probably go Wizard instead of Sorcerer, but for the sake of fulfilling the build request, I actually feel like this does turn out pretty much okay. I feel like it does stick on the theme quite well, giving you a ton of skill proficiencies, including, like, you know, I think you get most of the skill proficiencies in the game this way, so I think it works pretty well with Knowledge of the Ages. The ability to support your teammates, such as using Enhanced Ability and being able to gain a ton of information by passing a ton of dialogue checks, using things like Speak with Animals to be able to get information from every possible source. Lots and lots of utility here. Again, Twin Casting Haste is going to make your party extremely powerful. And obviously, you know, we have a ton of utility cantrips like Guidance, Thaumaturgy, Friends, all that good stuff to be able to make sure that our information gathering abilities are as top tier as they can be. And again, it's mainly just kind of combining all the support options that our three classes give us, and I think it does work out. Although I will readily admit that this is probably not my strongest build. I feel like, again, even though we are getting our full spell slots and all that, we are quite, I don't know, limited, I think, by the fact that we had to multi-class so many different times. But I do, again, like this character as one maybe that isn't like the front of the party, definitely someone who just sits in the background. Perhaps you could respec a party member into this rather than have it be your main character, and just get a ton of useful utility out of it. But let's get into the equipment. So we have a few options here. Like I say, if you want to go the wizard route, and I also think this just works really well in the early game as well, grabbing the warped headband of intellect just to give you a bit of intelligence, I feel like works out quite nicely. But instead of that, but once you kind of want to get rid of that, you can go for the Birthright Hat, giving you an extra bit of charisma, bumping it up to a 22 overall, which is nice. I've also gone for the Cloak of Protection. We are wearing light armor with this build, so getting that little bit of bonus to our armor class and saving throws is quite nice. The Blazer of Benevolence, this can be obtained really easily in Act 1, and it's just a really good looking Bard armor. In fact, I think it pretty much is the Bard armor as far as I'm concerned. At least looks-wise, it is quite weak, unfortunately, so that's why I've kind of got some other equipment to compensate here, but I do really, really like it overall, and I think it works out really nicely. All the equipment here is dyed, oh god, I think it's Feywild Green and Dundun or something, Green and Dundun. It's like a weird name, but it works out quite nicely here. And again, basically the Blazer of Benevolence just means when you inspire an ally using Bardic Inspiration, you gain 4 temporary hit points, so you're a little bit tankier. Although, honestly, you could probably swap this out if you're not too into the whole fashion thing. The Gloves of Dexterity, like I say, we are using this to patch up our weaker dexterity and allowing us to spread our ability scores a bit more broadly. This sets our dex to 18 and gives us a +1 to attack, which is good. Also, the Boots of Stormy Clamour, because a lot of our spells, like things like Vicious Mockery, Shocking Grasp, Chromatic Orb, Dissonant Whispers, a lot of our abilities actually do inflict status conditions. We can use the Boots of Stormy Clamour. When a wearer inflicts a condition upon a hostile creature, they also inflict 2 turns of Reverberation. And Reverberation, for those of you that don't know, the affected entity has a -1 penalty to Strength, Dex, and Constitution saving throws per remaining turn. And when the entity has 5 or more turns, they take turns of reverb. It takes 1 to 4 thunder damage and possibly falls prone. Basically meaning that you can inflict an extra status condition that is going to make it easier for your allies to be able to knock the enemy down. As for our accessories, we have the Psychic Spark, shoot an additional dart whenever you cast Magic Missile. Since Magic Missile is actually going to be one of the more powerful damage options you'll have with this build, as it scales up really nicely, I feel like having the ability to bump it up even further is quite nice. And it also gives you a free casting of it, but I mainly just wanted to show off something a bit different. We have the Mage's Friend Ring, just giving us a +1 to Arcana and Religion. I just picked this because I felt like it was on theme, but, you know, put whatever you want here. And the Ring of Protection, again, just a little bit of a buff to our armor class and saving throws, which is nice. For our weapon, we have the Creation's Echo. Again, I kind of just wanted to show off something a little bit different. You don't normally see a bard with a quarterstaff, but it actually just comes part of their base kit. So I thought, and since this is more of a caster build, I thought having more of a major staff kind of made sense to me. I feel like Clerics and Mistral would wield staffs more than swords. But again, switch this up with whatever you like. But I felt like doing something a bit different with this build. Creation's Echo. If the wielder deals acid, fire, lightning, radiant, or necrotic damage, it becomes resistant to that damage type for 2 turns, so it gives you a little bit of extra defense. But again, you can swap this out for anything you like. I feel like the Infernal Rapier would be a good option here. We also have a shield, and again, this can be any shield you like, it really doesn't matter. The Shield of Devotion is just a pretty decent shield that you can get quite easily in Act 2. It gives you an extra level 1 spell slot, always nice. You gain the standard shield bash, and you also get to cast Aid at level 3. Meaning you can give yourself 10 extra hit points. If you don't like the Cloak of Protection, you could also grab the Cloak of the Weave in Act 3. You gain a +1 bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls, nice, and it also gives you the Absorb Elements feature, allowing you to basically use the Absorb Elements spell from 5e, but for some reason isn't a spell in this game, don't know why. Basically meaning you take half damage from the next elemental attack, and then deal an additional 1d6 of that element type on your next attack. It's okay, but I thought, you know, I might as well include it because I never do, and it actually does kind of look okay on this build. So, yeah, I thought I'd just mention it, but I think the Cloak of Protection will probably do you better in the long run. And finally, we have the Darkfire Shortbow, because there's no reason not to take it, getting haste and resistances for free, even if we don't actually use the bow, which we can still do. It just makes sense, there's no reason not to have it in the slot. So, yeah, that is the build. Overall, again, I'm mainly just filling a build request here. I feel like if I was to do an actual kind of Child of the Starry Quill build, I think I would do something a little bit different. I feel like a Bard Wizard mix could be really, really interesting. But again, I actually don't think this is a bad build by any means. It's just definitely not my strongest, but I think as a utility character to just have in the background that can help out the party when needed, I feel like this actually is a really, really nice build to have. And again, play around with the levels. You may find more success in just kind of maybe going for a single level of Wizard and building more into Cleric and Bard, or again, maybe dropping the Cleric levels entirely and going for a Wizard Bard. Like I said, I feel like that could be a fun combination. I feel like the class that's probably hampering this build the most is the Cleric. You're really only there for Knowledge of the Ages, and while I do think you get a ton of interesting utility options, I feel like just going for a 6-6 split on Bard and Sorcerer would probably also do really well. Maybe taking College of Swords Bard and making a Gish that way could also work, but I don't know. But then I feel like I like it thematically, so maybe the Sorcerer is actually the thing that's hampering this the most. And maybe Wizard would be better overall to learn those scrolls, being able to give yourself like level 6 spells and such, which could be super, super good. So really do play around with this one. Again, I don't think I've created a necessarily bad build. I think it does work as a, you know, like I say, like a utility thing. But it's definitely not my favorite I've ever made. That's for sure. As far as my next kind of few videos are going to go, again, I think I'm still going to be fulfilling that build request backlog. If I do have some ideas for my own type of builds that I might do interspersed, and again, I think on Saturday it is going to be my next deity build, which I've said in the past is Tiamat. It's heavily delayed at this point, but I feel like I still kind of want to do that, as I've got an interesting idea for it, so, you know, I think that's what I'm going to go with. Sorry if I seem a bit, like, out of it in this video. I am very tired today. It's been a long day. Nothing bad, just tiring. So I'm sorry if my voiceover in this video was just a little bit strange. I am probably going to need to catch up on some sleep. Anyways, I think that's going to do it for me. I don't think there's anything else I need to say or mention. Oh, you know what? I will go over the response to the final Halloween video. Thanks. It's been pretty much 100% positive. I know that video was highly experimental in its presentation, and obviously the concept was a bit out there, but it seems like people really, really did resonate with it, so I appreciate it. I'm not going to say anything about it here, just in case you avoided it for spoiler reasons. However, I do feel like it got the reaction that I wanted, so overall, I'm quite happy. Anyways, like I said, that is going to do it from me. I will see you all again next time.